G'day folks and welcome to the Vookcast, Australia's Nintendo podcast. My name's Oliver Brandt and with me this week is Michael Goncalves.
Hey team.
Angelo Valdivia.
Hey paisanos.
And Luke Henderson.
Hello there.
We've got a great episode lined up for you this week, all about the Switch's birthday, a bunch of new Lego sets, the closure of an Australian games industry icon, and a lawsuit that came and went very quickly. But first, let's talk about Pokemon again, because there is actual Pokemon news. Just get it out of the way, because nobody gives a shit. Anyway, there's a new Pokemon game coming. It's a Pokemon Legends game, which is a follow-up to a Pokemon Legends Arceus, called Pokemon Legends ZA, or ZA if you're American, or watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z. It's set in Lumia City in Kalos, which is the region that was in Pokemon X and Y. It's only going to be set in Lumia City, which is weird. It's also not coming out until 2025, so there will be no main series Pokemon game this year, but it'll probably be early 2025, like the last Legends game. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else cares even remotely about this. But
I genuinely thought it was called Z-Day, not ZA. This, like, I think I talked about it. I think this logo is awful.
It's a terrible logo, yeah.
Kind of like
I genuinely thought it was called
Godzilla
something
X
else.
Kong. Why are you all putting letters and symbols in there that we don't speak out loud?
Yeah,
I'll be honest,
I mean,
I just thought it was Z minus A. Because I saw it.
Who knows?
Like, it's a Pokemon
Confusing.
game. They could have 100 different things.
Don't add math to it. Oh.
But no, it is ZA officially, so I mean, sure. But yeah, I mean, if nothing else, like, it's good to see that they're kind of taking a year off. Like, there's no main series Pokemon content at all coming this year. Which
Was there any
after
last year?
there was like two major
expansions.
DLCs for
Oh,
Scarlet
okay.
and Violet.
Does that count? I guess
Which-
it counts.
I mean, they take the place of the third game, which they used to do, like Emerald and Crystal and stuff. So it does kind of count, yeah. But yeah, there's absolutely nothing new coming this year. Probably for the best, given how buggy and broken Scarlet and Violet was.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. But I will say, I did find it hilarious the number of weirdos online that creamed their pants over the fact that Pokemon Z was a thing. Because there was always that rumor that X and Y, and there would be a Pokemon Z on the DS, which would be that third, re-release modified version that they do. And then it never happened. And then they announced Pokemon, and they put the Z, and it stayed on the screen for a few seconds on its own before they drew the A in on the logo. And everyone was like, "Oh my god, they brought it back!" It's like it was never official. It was never a thing. So yeah, it made me laugh the number of people that were freaking out over that.
They probably did initially plan to have a Pokemon Z once upon a time, because there's that third legendary, and nothing ever happened with it. It was just sort of like shoved into Sun and Moon as like an afterthought. But yeah, this isn't bringing back Pokemon Z. Like, this is just a whole new thing, and they just wanted to say, hey, this is Z. Deal with
I
it.
feel the only thing that worries me about this is like the fact they're going, set within the confines of the city, and it's like, okay, that'd be like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas not letting you actually get out of the city, just keeping you in. You wouldn't be able to get out to the country. It would just seem weird.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but like I figure like there's games like Spider-Man, that's set entirely within one city, so
Yeah, but the whole point of
obviously
Pokemon is to get
gonna
out and
be
explore the
black.
world and capture Pokemon. I mean, if we have to start exploring sewers to find new Pokemon, I think people are going to be a little concerned, but I don't know, it just seems like the whole thing for Pokemon over the years has been exploring the world, exploring the regions, and to have a game where that's not actually an element seems a bit...
Well, see, this is the thing, right? Is that like the last Legends game came out and it was kind of like experimental and weird and did things that the main series would never really touch. So I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with the Legends series, is like doing interesting things that aren't really within the scope of a main series game that everybody wants to see in a main series game, but can perhaps like inform things in future games, so they can test things out that they wouldn't normally be able to do in a main series game, and then if it's successful, they can bring that into the main series. We sort of saw this with
I'm not saying that they can't try things out in this series, it's sub-series. That's fine, but it's just like when your whole gameplay element is exploring the world to find Pokemon, hiding in grasses and caves and everything, to actually like cut that out of your new one just seems a bit of a weird decision to make. It could turn out to be something amazing in the end, but right now it just seems like a weird choice.
I mean, the other thing is that we know like basically nothing about it except that it's a new game and it's set in one city, and like that's it. And like they could just be like completely bullshitting about that too. Like maybe we'll go to other places as well, but like the city will be the hub. Like, you know, it's not as if Pokemon hasn't just like blatantly lied in marketing before. So
True.
I mean, most companies kind of do that.
I'm gonna assume this is gonna be a cross-platform game. Like,
I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mean cross-gen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, cross-gen. Yes.
Coming to Switch consoles.
The Switch family of consoles, I think, is what they said. Nintendo said in their tweet about it. I will say though, given that this is early 2025, it wouldn't surprise me if this launches day one on Switch 2. If that early launch of Switch 2 and the game sort of align.
Well, look, if it's
I think,
only
like-
on current gen Switch, then technically it will launch day one on Switch 2, like every other Switch, like original Switch game. So there isn't that too.
If Switch 2 is backwards compatible, let's not count our chickens.
Yeah. We'll probably come to that later.
Yeah. But no, I think if nothing else, it'll be a case of like, you know, you buy it and it's only like, you know, it's before the Switch 2 comes out, but then it's like, oh, you know, enhanced for Switch 2, so you can like, I don't know, pay extra, pay another $10 to get higher frame rates. Yeah.
The other thing too is the Pokemon games have historically always stuck around on old hardware for a bit longer. So even if it doesn't come to Switch 2 and just stays on OG Switch, that wouldn't be a surprise either.
Yeah. I mean, like they were still releasing like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon in 2017 after the Switch was out, and like nobody bought that because at that point, who was going to buy a game on the 3DS? Like the 3DS fell off so fast.
It was crazy how fast that went downhill. Like,
Yeah,
But then
like-
I saw recently that like in a Nintendo ad or something, or a Pokemon ad, someone referred to a 3DS as a retro console, and like people were like reacting very viscerally to that. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
it's been 7 years since the Switch came out.
I
What's
have
going on here?
a very hardline stance. If it's not current gen, it's retro. Like that's
Yeah,
how it works.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because like even I've also been reading and hearing conversations about like, are we using the word retro incorrectly to refer to older hardware? Because retro typically means something new in a retro style. Technically, the word we all should have been using this whole time is apparently vintage. But who's going to say that? We're
I
not going
think
to go back and edit the lexicon.
in terms of like language, it's like more important how people use things than it is like what it actually means, right? So, like
Yeah, man.
people
Language is
use
fluid. Okay.
like I think like yeah, like retro is like something that's like a little bit old, and then vintage is something that's quite old, and then beyond that it's antique, right? So
My thing would be anything retro or vintage, whatever terminology you want to use, would be 2 generations or older. So I wouldn't call the Wii U retro. I just call it last gen. But then the Wii,
Retro, baby.
I would class that as retro. That's how I do it, just to keep things aligned better. Because unfortunately, even though we have the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, we still have games made for PS4 and Xbox One. They're still technically valid, so they're still not retro because they're still getting new content.
Oh, yeah,
People
but in
are
the
releasing
context of-
people are releasing retro games. That's fun.
Yeah, but and
I mean,
also in the
somebody's
context
released
of
a
computer
GTA
hardware,
game.
like in the context of computer hardware, something that's 10 years old is old AF, and the Xbox is like One and PS4 are that old now. They're 11 years old, so super
Yeah.
old.
yeah, I mean like if you
That's
had
2
a phone
generations.
from 10 years ago, people would say that your phone is like basically unusably old.
Dude, I saw a Gen Z person unironically using a flip phone, like here in Sydney. Sydney's wild. Don't come to Sydney. I hate Sydney.
That's great. Anyway, yeah, new Pokemon. That's a thing. So we're actually recording on Mario Day today, which is fun.
We're recording on the Wish.com Mario Day because
We are.
it's not America, unfortunately.
Yeah, Australian Mario Day. But yeah, we didn't plan that. It just is the Sunday that we recorded on. But because we are, there's like literally just been new announcements this morning at the time of recording, and there probably will be more tomorrow after we record because that's usually how
That's
it
when
goes.
America celebrates their Mario Day.
So Nintendo has like just this morning announced new Lego Mario sets, including Mario Kart sets. So we don't really know much about the Lego Mario Kart sets, but they won't be coming for a year or more. But there were a few more sets announced. Most of them won't be available until late 2024. It seems like August is the date.
August 1st is what the Lego website has at the moment, but
That can always
that could
slip.
change.
Why are we getting announcements for toys a year in advance? Like, we
So
already get this with video games 5 years in advance. Now we're doing it to toys. What the hell?
I read this news like 10 seconds after I woke up this morning, and my stupid morning brain was like, oh man, a new Mario Kart game that's like Lego based. And I was so excited. And then I just remembered, wait, Lego is a physical product? And I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's way less exciting.
That's
mean-
amazing.
Even if that was the case, I wouldn't get too excited. Lego racing games tend not to be all that amazing to begin with. The last one that came out
true.
wasn't that great.
But what if the reason that the Lego Mario Kart game, like Mario Kart stuff, isn't coming out until 2025 is because Switch 2 launch is going to be a Lego Mario Kart game made by Nintendo's Mario Kart team, licensed by Lego? Yeah,
No.
it could happen.
I don't think.
You could like build your own like vehicles and stuff. It would just be like a better Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts.
I mean, I feel like
Bring
they're
that back from the last
definitely
episode.
planning to ride the hype train for a new Mario Kart. I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, no,
Nintendo
these
just
new
likes writing
sets-
hype trains in general and blueballing their audience. So
Yeah, fair.
And one of the sets
but
is
yeah.
a train, so
Yeah, one of the sets is a train, which I think is wonderful. And it comes with a Goomba that has a little top hat on a train station, which is just the most incredible thing. But yeah, so August 1 is when it's supposed to come out. It will probably come out later. And then Australia, you probably won't see it in stores until like mid-September because
No, Lego
Wait.
are pretty decent with
Oh,
their
no.
dates. If they say August 1, it'll be August 1 on Lego.com, and then like the big official Lego reseller stores, like I Am Rick James, that sort of stuff would be like the first, and then usually retail stores like Big W and Target will get it a few days later. Usually,
yeah, I mean,
They're
you're kind of
pretty
forgetting
consistent that way.
I live in Tasmania, so
That's not my fault.
usually
That's not
doesn't
Lego's
happen.
fault.
sorry.
No,
Can we all look at the Ghost Castle image? Is that meant to be a Koopa on the left-hand side? Like, what
It's
is
the
that?
yellow Yoshi. It's the
That's a yellow Yoshi.
Because when you're in the game,
like
when you shake him, he lights up. He like illuminates the levels, so you can see the
Oh,
paths that are
yeah.
hidden.
Right, so it's like the fat baby Yoshi that, right?
yeah, right.
That is incredible.
Man, what a deep cut for a game that nobody really cared about.
What's even stranger is this level, this Boo thing. It's King Boo, and King Boo only comes from Luigi's Mansion. It's where he generally appears, and this is nothing to do with Luigi's Mansion. Even though in the footage they showed off in their little Lego Mario Day Direct thing that they did, there was a Luigi figurine included in the shot. This isn't actually from Luigi's Mansion. It's not inspired by Luigi's Mansion in any way, shape, or form, but they've taken elements from that and the Mario 3D World game together, which is kind of funny.
The bashful Boo is really, really cute, and I want it just by itself.
It is. There's something like
Actual-
super endearing about like having
Yeah, in
boos
the top
just
left.
like
Oh, I see.
huge cubes. Like
Yeah, totally.
it's kind of fun.
Also, there's like one pumpkin that's included in the set. It just seems really out of place.
Yeah. No,
There's
it's
also a spider.
Yeah.
There is a spider. Yeah.
I wish there was just like a set for just Peach's Castle, just a big Peach's Castle set. That would be lovely.
Wow, you mentioned that. There is a Peach's Castle set in the announcements.
No, that's
It's
what I'm
like
looking
a
at. and
full
It looks
castle.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's also,
well,
as I
full
said
castle
before, it's
makes
also
it
the second Peach's Castle we've gotten. And neither
Yeah.
of them are the actual Peach's Castle. Like, it's not a full castle. It's like the facade castle. So,
Like, you guys remember that massive Death Star that came out in the 90s, that Lego one? It'd be great to get something like that, but a Peach's Castle.
That would be pretty good. But yeah, so
Cut the check,
you know,
Nintendo.
new Lego. I think it's actually kind of interesting as well because, like, I don't know about you guys, but like when I go to like Kmart or Toy World or wherever, there's like no Lego Mario there like at all anymore. There hasn't been for months and months and months now. They cleared that out a long time ago. So it's curious, like, that they're doing this again because, like, are those stores even going to like dedicate shelf space to Lego Mario?
I think it's
again?
more that they over ordered it in the first wave. Like, there was so much of that stuff around when that very first wave hit, and people just weren't buying it because it was just okay, cool. There's a Koopa and there's a Goomba and all that. It's like, yeah, but you can make most of that except without the face pieces or the eyes. You can make all that without any actual kit, right? Because they're not actual figurines. They're just assembled from regular bricks. So 90% of what you buy in those kits, you could just build if you bought a generic box of random pieces. So I think that people just weren't buying them because there wasn't a point. Once you had the actual figurine, you could play on any regular Lego set that you had. So I think they just overbought and then they just only just scaled back to the barest minimum they needed going forward. But when was the
Lego
last Mario
stores.
set that released anyway? That's been a while.
At Lego stores, there are decent setups of them. As Vookcast's exclusive Sydney correspondent temporarily, there are so many Lego stores in Sydney, and there are like even more people walking around with Lego bags and stuff. So like Lego is huge here for some reason. But like the times
The
that I
Lego
visited
store
a
in
Lego
Sydney
store,
is the largest Lego store in the world.
well, one of the Lego stores in Sydney. There are many Lego stores throughout Sydney. It is
No, the
ridiculous.
actual official Lego store. The only official one it's on the Pitt Street Mall. It's the largest Lego store in the world.
That's the most recent one that's been built, but I could literally name like 3 other ones that are around the place that are Lego stores.
Lego or just Lego branded but not owned by Lego?
I mean, it makes no difference to me. It literally is a store that's yellow and has Lego at the top. Like, it's a Lego store.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think the thing that Luke is making a distinction, there's 2 types of Lego stores. There's like official Lego stores, and then there's Lego certified stores, which have all the same branding, but
You know what?
it doesn't make a
Literally
difference.
no one cares about the semantics on this, so I'm just going to get back to the point that like there are a
Yeah.
lot of like displays of Mario Lego that I've seen at these Lego stores, whether or not they're official ones or whatever. So I think people are still buying them somewhat, but like there are lots of all sorts of sets, niche ones and like stupidly popular ones like Harry Potter and things like that. So
Yeah,
Lego themselves produce God knows how many sets a year across all the different things. Like so far this year, they've announced a new Batman set, a new Disney set, the medieval village set. You know, it's basically just like an old school village thing, and like 2 or 3 other sets. And that's like we've only just started March, and they've already announced like 6 brand new, big sets. And it's like they announced so much stuff, and half the stuff they announced, like the Lego City and Lego Girls or Lego Friends, whatever that stuff's called these days, and their Dreams series, all that stuff gets sort of released. They don't really promote that stuff. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're just swapping it out because they just don't have space on the shelves for all the crap Lego produce.
But we'll see how it goes. I'm just not sure that like retailers outside of like the core sort of, I don't know. I'm not sure that retailers will really pick it up. I'm sure like EB Games will probably have some new able to buy it on the Nintendo store, but is Kmart and Tasmania going to stock it? Probably not. We'll see how it goes. All right, moving on. A bit of a interesting story. So Nintendo filed a lawsuit against Tropic Haze, which is the developer of a Switch emulator called Yuzu, claiming that the emulator bypassed protection measures and facilitated piracy, by Nintendo's words, at a colossal scale. Both of which are apparently, not allowed under the DMCA. That's up for debate, but anyway, the suit was very quickly, like 2 weeks after it was filed, settled out of court for $2.4 million. So Tropic Haze will be paying $2.4 million to Nintendo and Yuzu itself was pulled offline. The 3DS emulator Citra, which is probably the most popular 3DS emulator, which was also developed by Tropic Haze, has been pulled offline as well. So there's a couple like caveats to this. It's like Nintendo doesn't typically go after emulators themselves. For the most part, it leaves them alone. Yuzu was a bit of an interesting one because they were making 40 grand a month on Patreon, and like in their Discord, like literally had guides for like how to play pre-release games, and they were charging people for patches, kind of like you could play pre-release games using the patches provided through Patreon access. Otherwise you had to wait until after the game was out. So they were doing a lot of stuff that, like, on its face obviously would have caught Nintendo's attention. And like Nintendo was apparently in their Discord and everything, and there were like developers who were bragging about the fact that they had this big stash of pirated games, and it was a whole thing. Like basically, like, they raved a red flag, and Nintendo, being the bull that it is, charged. But the downside to this is that like 2 pretty decent emulators are no longer existing, and that has like huge ramifications for all sorts of things going forward. But like mostly kind of like preservation is going to be affected a bit by this, because there will be other people who could have contributed to this project who will be too concerned. Like, even though like the source code is out there, it was open source from the get-go, but they won't contribute to it if they think that Nintendo is going to come after them. So there's all sorts of issues with this kind of thing. But like on the other hand, like Tropic Haze was like extraordinarily stupid with how they handled basically everything to do with Yuzu. So yeah. Does anyone have any thoughts on this in general? Beyond
I think in the context of the 3DS emulator Citra going away, that's probably the biggest hit, in my opinion, because currently we still at least have something like Ryujinx, which is another popular Switch emulator, and the way that they operate is very different to Yuzu, where for starters they don't seem to brag about or basically market that there are features locked behind a paywall via Patreon. So they at least have that going for them. So I think at least if they keep playing their cards correctly and within the law, basically, that will be fine. But Citra, especially, I think is a pretty big hit.
Yeah, I mean, there are alternatives to Citra in the 3DS emulation space, but like none of them were really quite as feature packed and
exactly
as good as Citra. And as we come to the shutdown of the 3DS and Wii U online services, there will be people looking at things like emulators to continue to play 3DS games, and that just might not be possible for a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know. Michael, what are your thoughts on this? Oh, Luke, give us.
No, Michael can go.
Yeah, I think we've all pretty much hit the main points on the head here. Like, they're just Yuzu and Citra are both amazing emulators, but they were just colossally fucking stupid for just taking large amounts of cash like over the years for these emulators. And I understand, obviously, like, writing an emulator and maintaining it is a lot of work. And obviously these guys were doing it as like a proper full-time job for multiple people. And it definitely takes that to do it. But now, for the most part, this stuff's gone. Like you said, no one's going to want to touch... Like, the source code's out there. It's not like it's disappeared from the internet. But no one's really going to want to touch it if Nintendo was going to, like, nuke them from orbit. And I think it's very telling that in this particular case, like, this happened within a week. And these guys settled because they 100% knew that they were going to lose. There's no chance that they would have won this. And it was cheaper for them to pay the 2.4 million than it was to fight it.
I think Nintendo really just had the receipts, right?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, is that like even just from like the suit that they filed, we know that like they were in the Discord for years, and they had kept track of everything. So it was, yeah, it was definitely a case of like Nintendo had the receipts, and like if they had gone to court or even just progressed the suit at all, then like there would be a whole process of discovery where Nintendo would be able to ask them, like, send me a list of all of the ROMs that you have on your computer and when you received all of them and where you got them from, and like they would be legally compelled to provide all of that. So I think what likely happened is Nintendo filed suit, proper case went to a lawyer. The lawyer was like, well, you should just settle, because like this is going to be so much more expensive and so much more damaging if you go to court. And
well, that's it. Like these guys could have potentially gone to jail if they really tried to fight it. It would have just kind of escalated and gotten worse and worse and worse. So the fact that they just settled, it's obviously the better outcome for them.
I mean, they
for the rest of the world, everyone
made
loses out
more
on
than
the emulator anyway.
$2.4 million, like over the time that they were doing it. I don't know how what the maths works out. But I don't know if Patreon was their only source of income, like when it comes to this, or there was other ways. But they probably aren't so bad off.
No.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I was just going to say, in terms of emulation, I am 100% supporting of anyone emulating consoles and platforms that no longer exist for preservation purposes. Like I have Citra installed on my computer, and I have my 3DS. I have an American one and an Australian one. And whenever I want to stream games off those platforms, I can't do that because there's no way of streaming an actual physical 3DS without like a dodgy camera sitting above it. Whereas Citra allows me to do that. But I own those games. I have either the physical cartridge or it's bought it on the eShop. So I have no issue with that for that purpose. But there was somebody made the comment about, well, if Nintendo let us play Zelda at more than 20 frames a second, we wouldn't have to do this. And it's like, yeah, but okay, that's not an argument for an emulation. That's an argument for your selfish, egotistical desire for a video game to run the way you want it to, right? Now, yes, Nintendo hardware is kind of crap these days because it's prehistoric at this point. Or as Angelo said earlier, OAF. But there's a difference between having an emulator because there are platforms that you own content for. Maybe your old NES has died and you can't go out and buy a new console, can't buy a new Nintendo Entertainment System. So there's no issue for that. But if you don't own the games and you're doing this just because you don't want to spend $50, $60 every 3 or 4 months to buy a new game, then, that's shame on you. And if you're promoting piracy in any way, shape or form, yes, Nintendo makes millions upon millions of dollars every day. There's no argument there. But if your argument is, well, they make millions of dollars so they can afford a $50 loss here, but that's not how it works. You doing this once doesn't help, doesn't not hurt Nintendo. It just, you're promoting your own agenda for your own personal benefit, and it sickens me. Again, emulation for preservation, fine with. If you own the games, fine with. But if you don't do it. Plain and simple. That's my point. My view on it.
I mean, that's a fair perspective. I mean, I don't give a shit what people in general do. I think, if you're going to do that, then whatever, right? Like, who cares? Like the people that are gonna pirate things were never gonna pay for it anyway, right? It's like, so ultimately, them doing so really means nothing. I do have an issue when somebody's making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or a year to basically, facilitate piracy, and that's ultimately what was happening here. Is that it wasn't a fact of like, let's make an emulator so we can, so that people can play their games, 10, 20 years in the future. It's like, let's make a profit so that people can play pirated games now, and that is, ultimately what got them in trouble. And
it just came to me, how many of these video game reviewers aren't going to be able to have their reviews out at an embargo?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to that because there's a lot of politics behind the scenes of of the video games media industry. But I mean, like, people have used pirated copies in the past, and people will use pirated copies in the future. It's gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, this whole scenario, like I don't think anybody thinks that, like, well, there are people, but they're idiots. I don't think anybody thinks that, like, emulators are inherently a bad thing, right? Like, they're quite good. I mean, like, I don't think there's anybody, like, here or anybody listening who hasn't used an emulator, official or unofficial. Like, we've all emulated stuff. Like, up until, like, you know, a couple weeks ago, I had played Golden Sun on an emulator dozens and dozens of times. So,
Mate, the moment
even
the
now,
moment that a new piece of Nintendo hardware comes out that makes my current one obsolete, I hack the crap out of it. Like, I do not care. My Wii U, the moment the Switch came out, man, that was my new emulation box. Like, whatever. I do not care.
I will admit to you now, and I will put in here. My PlayStation Vita that I ordered from Japan turned up during the week. The day after it turned up, I modded it. Mostly because I want to run everything off an SD card and not that proprietary memory card format the PlayStation trying to shove on everyone, because that shit is expensive now. But yeah, that's it. But I did that.
I, for one, have never emulated or hacked a console in my life. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
And don't forget, in Australia, it is actually legal for you to modify a console for the purposes of playing games from other regions. That is actually legal.
Yeah. And
obviously not really a relevant thing these days, but
in most cases, like, emulating games that you own that are, like, legitimate backups of your own game. So, like, if you have, like, a PS1 game and you rip the ROM and then play it on your computer, like, that's legal in most places. Not all places, because there are some countries with strange laws around it. But yeah, for the most part, you know, it's fine.
Crazy to me to
but
think
then, like,
in some countries that you can get in trouble for putting your disc not in that box but in this box.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
I mean, like, in Japan, like, it's against the law to modify your console for the purposes of playing unofficial software. So, like, homebrew is, like, technically illegal in Japan. So if you hacked your Switch, like, that could be against the rules, and that's why we're seeing, like, a lot of companies like Capcom, like, cracking down on mods and stuff, because, you know, that kind of fits in line with the spirit of the law, even if it's not in the letter of the law. But in any case, like, Japanese companies are a lot more bullish about mods and stuff, and, you know, homebrew and cracking and piracy and stuff. So these kinds of things are going to happen. But ultimately, you know, like, there are hundreds and hundreds of emulators. Most of them are Nintendo related, and most of them haven't been affected by Nintendo at all. So as long as you don't do what Tropicase did, then
wasn't
should be fine.
On the Wii, or it was the Wii or the 3DS, Nintendo ended up using a ROM of a Mario game they put on the service because they couldn't find the source code.
It's a common myth. It's a common myth.
Wasn't it the Mario 25th anniversary disc?
That's what people say, right? It's not actually true. So this is a fun thing. This story persisted for a really, really long time, but it's just not true. It's not true at all. Nintendo did not download a ROM from the internet. They hired somebody who worked in... Oh, Angelo, what a riot is going on behind you.
Yeah, the apartments I live in here are just like massive echo chambers.
They hired somebody who worked in the emulation scene, and that person just used a tool to create headers for NES ROMs that was used commonly in the emulation scene. So it was purely just a case of they hired someone who knew what they were doing, and they used freely available tools to do it.
I think it's also important to state that, like, if you dump a ROM and it uses the same header system as something else, it is literally going to be identical to any ROM on the internet. Like, that's the way good ROM dumping should work. So it will look identical even if it isn't.
So yeah, it was thought. But, like, I mean, like, Nintendo, you know, they've said in court cases in the past that, like, you know, emulation is, like, an inherently illegal thing. Like, all it does is let people pirate stuff. But, like, obviously Nintendo uses emulation itself, right? Like, it's the thing. Like, Nintendo Switch Online is all emulation. They haven't somehow ported all of those games one by one to Switch hardware. Like, that was never happening. Although
I mean, Xbox has been big on emulation since they brought backwards compatibility into their little ecosystem. Emulation's not the problem.
Well,
it's
their
piracy
own
that's the
emulation. They completely removed the ability to put RetroArch on there.
I mean, only on like the non-developer console. If you've got a dev console, like you pay that fee, you can still do it.
yeah, if you pay $100, like that's all it costs to get.
Oh, it's
it.
only like
it's
$20.
$100. It's like $20.
No, it's like $20.
Yeah, it's super cheap.
I did it myself.
It's super cheap.
Nice. But yeah, like obviously Nintendo, like NERD, is they exclusively work on emulation. Like that's their whole thing.
Not they're Nintendo's tech department, and like 85% of what they do is emulation.
Yeah.
So
they do occasionally do other stuff as well. But, yeah.
NERD, if you've never heard of it, NERD stands for Nintendo's European Research and Development. So we're not just calling a bunch of people at Nintendo nerds. I mean, they are, but that's literally what their acronym, their title breaks down to is nerd. So.
Yeah. And if you go over to their website, they will have dozens of job listings for people who work in the emulation scene. So
I'm not kidding. I went through when I was doing all my stuff at the start of the year, and they had a document on their website for like they do patents and all that sort of stuff. And it's like Disney Research. Disney Research goes all in on things you wouldn't associate with Disney. And I went through it, and it was all about this patent was all about determining the location of an object in a spiral pattern based on motion of another object. It's like that has nothing to do with video games. That's a real world patent regarding motion technology. But somebody at NERD spent years researching and developing this thing, and so they've patented this technology.
yeah, I mean it's a pretty common thing overall in tech companies of any kind, whether you're doing video games or any other kind of tech, is that like if you can create something that is eligible for a patent, you should do it, because then that's just an extra revenue stream, because somewhere down the line somebody will want to license that patent, and then they'll have to pay you for it. It's honestly part of the reason that like we don't have Hall effect sticks on every single controller, because that technology is patented by one company in China, and licensing on a large scale is quite expensive. But Nintendo also has a whole bunch of patents of stuff that like seems kind of basic, but will they kind of pioneered it. So,
D-pad, baby.
Yeah, although I think the D-pad one is
I think it's expired.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, when was it? Wii U? I don't remember. It was recently though.
But like one of the recent patents that Nintendo filed was like a kind of system that, for analog sticks in particular, they used like an electrostatic fluid that basically would become more rigid if you applied electricity to it. So like the idea was like firstly that it would work as like a drift-free stick solution, but also like you could do essentially kind of like how the PS5 has adaptive triggers, so like you can't press it in. You could effectively do that with analog sticks. That's the patent that Nintendo filed, which I think would be a really strange experience and probably not particularly fun, but they've patented it, so they could do that. Anyway, this is
love
longer.
making analog sticks more complicated. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah,
I mean, the fact that they're called analog sticks and they're getting complicated is just an oxymoron in themselves. Because they're analog; they're not supposed to be complicated.
In any case, yeah.
Piracy bad, emulation okay.
Yeah, although piracy in some
piracy
instances
neutral.
is fine too. Yeah, I'm not going to make a judgment on that, because we've all been there. In any case, move on to some sad news. So Melbourne studio Taurus Games has laid off most of its staff. There's still a couple there, but it's mostly just administrative staff left now. Effectively putting an end to the studio. So the studio over the years worked on more than 140 games across the Wii, Nintendo DS, GBA, GBC, and original Game Boy. And also in recent years has worked as a support studio on games like Lego 2K Drive and some content for Fortnite. It sort of comes as a part of a greater industry trend of layoffs and studio closures, which has just massively accelerated in the past 3 months. So, yeah, unfortunate for Taurus Games, and hopefully they all find places at companies that aren't going to lay them off in the next couple months, because that is a story that I've heard from developers all too often.
Yeah. I will say, like, Taurus Games, like, they're not a name you generally will think of when you think of games, but the sheer number of IP they've touched over the years. Well, one of the ones they did recently, it was a game called Match Point. It was a tennis game, and it sticks in my head because at the time there were only 2 officially licensed tennis game or realistic tennis games in development. One was done by Taurus in Melbourne, and the other one's done by Big Ant in Melbourne. And the fact that, you know, there were only 2 realistic tennis games in existence at that time, and both of them were being made in Melbourne, it just sticks in my head as one of those weird scenarios. Obviously, there's top spins on its way back, but yeah, it's sad that a developer with so many years behind them has essentially shut down. So,
yeah, I mean, they were founded in 1994, so this is, 30 years into the game now. Which, yeah, just dreadful stuff.
Vooks and I commiserated over the fact that their very first game was Stargate, and we both love the Stargate series. So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's going to keep happening. Unfortunately, the industry is extremely volatile right now. There's effectively no funding for, smaller developers, and larger developers have overextended in recent years and now are trying to make their numbers.
They're circling their wagons, keeping with all their stuff that they know will make money. I will say, I did see some reports, I don't know how accurate it is, but I did see reports that a number of the Taurus guys have been picked up by Tantalus, or what was formerly Tantalus.
Yeah, there have been some rumors about that, which would be good. Tantalus does really good work. Although I guess their Keywords Studios Australia now, or
yeah, I'm just going to call them Tantalus because Keywords is everywhere, and it doesn't help narrow it down. I mean, Tantalus alone they've been doing all the definitive editions for the Age of Empires stuff for a number of years. They've been working on that. So, and obviously Nintendo fans will know them for Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword HD. They did the job there. So, they also launched on the Wii U with Mass Effect 3 and Funky Barn, 2 very distinct different games there. But yeah, we saw this in like 2008 with that first financial thing. Like all these Australian smaller studios were shutting down, and then it took maybe 5-6 years before they started bouncing back. And Taurus managed to weather that without any real issue. So hopefully they can get some funding and sort of revive soon. But if this is the end of them, it'll be a sad way to go because nobody knew that they worked on Lego 2K Drive. It was sort of just there with it. So if this is the way they go out, that is just a sad way to go.
Alrighty. Unless Angelo or Michael have anything to say about that, we can move on to our feature discussion. So about a week ago now, the Nintendo Switch turned 7 years old, which is just wild to think about. So yeah, 7 years of games. I don't know. It's overwhelming to think that much time has passed since the Switch launched. But I thought we could talk about our favorite moments and games, and just the Switch in general, how it's been up until this point. Talk about what's next, and sort of think about what we want from another console and what would cause us to not buy the next console. So yeah, what's been everyone's favorite game on the Switch to date? And it's probably a difficult one for most people. And I just sort of sprung it on you all, so.
I mean, the game I put the most time into was Breath of the Wild.
That's a fair one.
It's such a bad memory of games.
What's
I'm
that?
trying to remember games that exist. In general.
I have a couple that
Great opinion to have coming into 20 questions after this, Michael.
No, No, I mean, I think my favorite one, and definitely the one I've spent the most hours in, has been Monster Hunter Rise. I've always been a huge fan of Monster Hunter, and Rise was sort of just the best thing that has come out of the series in a long time. So yeah, and then like on the other side of things, like there's been smaller games like Hollow Knight is obviously very good. Sayonara Wild Hearts is like one of my favorite games of all time. But then like the Link's Awakening remake was an absolute banger too. So yeah, lots of really fantastic games, and I'm probably forgetting just as many as I'm remembering. So
I think if I had to choose a number one, like by far, just purely on gameplay hours, but like definitely a lot of them is got to be Animal Crossing for me. Like that just absorbed my life for so long. I just love it. It's just a really fun game, and I can't wait to see what they do with another one on Switch 2, whatever it's called. Probably other than that, probably Mario Odyssey after that. I loved Mario Odyssey like so much. I still haven't played Wonder, don't at me. It's on my list of games to play. But I think I'll similarly enjoy that. Yeah, it's probably my top two, like easily, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Wonder's different. Oh, yeah, go on.
No, go on. Finish your thought.
I was gonna say like Wonder, I think like, and same with sort of Odyssey as well. Like they both kind of hit at like specific moments in time for me that were just like perfect to like sit down and play a Mario game. So I'll definitely have very fond memories of both of those. Yeah, Angelo, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely the two games that I played the most, that I put the most hours into on the Switch, have to be Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing. With Breath of the Wild, like just the fact that it was a home console that I could also play while I was watching TV. So I did a lot of that, a lot of foraging, a lot of exploring while I was just watching like just downing seasons of Mad Men of all shows at the time back in 2017. I have very distinct memories of that. But yeah, Animal Crossing, absolutely just such a wonderful way to stay connected to people in a really disconnected time. It's just going to absolutely be a core memory for me. But then I think another one has to be Mario Kart, even though I played a lot of Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. With Deluxe coming out like, a month or two after the Switch's release, and like a lot of people being like, oh, should I finally get into like, playing a Nintendo console, buying a Nintendo console at this point? And like when Mario Kart came out, it was an absolute no-brainer for me to just recommend that to everyone. And so many friends that I had who just didn't really buy consoles, just bought Switches and got Mario Kart, and then eventually Animal Crossing as well, and they were just perfect ways to just spend time with that system. Some standout indies for me though, think about some smaller games. Whenever I think about playing indies on the Switch, Stardew Valley is one that really crosses my mind a lot. And of all games, like Katana Zero, for some reason, sticks out to me.
Yeah,
but
Katana Zero is really good.
Yeah, that was great. Hollow Knight, obviously, even though it came out like 2017, like it exploded when it came to the Switch in 2018, I think. And just another like great nugget is the Sega, what it's called, it's like the Sega Mega Drive or Master System Picross game. Like just a brilliant Picross game. If anyone's looking for Picross and has some nostalgia for some 80s and early 90s arcade games or arcade style games, definitely pick that up. It's often quite cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself on the Switch more than any other console, just like buying things to try them, and like that's not something that I ever really have done before. But I'll see something that's like, it's $10 on the eShop, may as well give it a go, because like I can, watch something on TV or whatever and just play it, have it sort of in the background. Like it's something that I've never really done before.
Never understand people's ability to play a video game and watch TV. I 100% cannot do it.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it if it's story stuff. If I'm focusing on like moving forward with the story or anything like that, or anything that involves dialogue, like I can't do both. But if I'm doing like really menial stuff, like okay, I'm gonna go over here and just like farm, then I absolutely put something on the TV, because that's where my ears are, but my eyes are down on the console basically.
You're just pressing A to mine something in a game just repeatedly, something like that.
Just really mundane stuff that takes no brain power.
I have to say, probably the thing for me on Switch is just the sheer number of collections of games, like the Castlevania collections, the Crisis games are there, all the Dooms there. So just the fact that there's so many series that are sort of not complete, but you can get like the bulk of them, or a good selection of them on the console. Like, obviously that's not inherent to Switch, but that's like, I was literally just looking at my Switch and I've got the two Castlevania collections, I've got the Contra collection, I've got the Turtles collection. I'm just naming Konami collections at this point. But I've got the Turtles collection, but I've got all the Crisis games, the BioShock games, the Borderlands games. I've got what was it, Burnout collection, right? So that remaster of Burnout Paradise. There's just so many of those sort of releases in this generation, and I always just found myself on Switch with them.
You look at like Capcom as well, they've got like Mega Man, Mega Man X, Mega Man Zero, and the Battle Network games. But then like there's so many Street Fighters on the Switch as well.
Imagine if they do a Monster Hunter collection. Good God.
First of all,
like
like that would be
10,000
a
hours right
gigantic
there.
collection. That would be like a 150 gigabyte download. But yeah, there's been so much. I mean, like the Ace Attorney games as well. Like all of them effectively are playable on Switch now.
Rest in peace, Miles Edgeworth Investigations, which will never exist ever again.
I mean, the Batman stuff that just came out at the end of last year, right? We have two of them on the Wii U, and I'm not talking about the quality of them. I own them on Xbox and PC. I'll just play them there. But like at no point would anyone ever have thought that the Batman games, the Arkham series, would ever hit Switch, because why would it, right? No, and again, you could argue that was just a business decision, rah. But somebody had to have thought, I wonder if it's worth doing this. And I don't know, I just feel like this generation especially, we've been embracing collections, and again, that's companies being scummy and overcharging for collections of things. But we've seen a lot of remakes and remasters, like Night Dive and Digital Eclipse have done a lot of work with that sort of stuff. We just got Dark Forces, the remastering remake of that one just came out the other week. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've just had a lot of fun on Switch just playing a lot of older games. And as for indies, I couldn't even begin to name any that haven't been mentioned already, because I play so many goddamn games. But yeah, I don't know. It's just.
I have to say though, looking at the Nintendo eShop, I don't think enough people are saying, "Is this worth releasing on Nintendo Switch?" Because like, I think everyone just has a shotgun approach to the Nintendo Switch eStore. So,
genuinely, we're kind of at a point where like a company will be like, if it can pass certification on Switch, it's worth releasing on Switch, regardless of the quality. They will release it on Switch if it passes cert, and that is, for better or for worse.
And that bar is obviously very, very low.
Yeah.
When the Wii launched, I remember it because I was working in retail, and there was a company out of the UK was just releasing all their PS2 shovelware crap straight to the Wii. And I remember one was like Gingerbread Racing or something like that. It was like a gingerbread themed go-kart racer. And I remember seeing it and just thinking, what the hell is this crap? And then during the week, I shared it with the guys here, but I found this company that's basically doing interactive storybooks that aren't storybooks, and one of their key features on one of them was over 1,300 words. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? You're yeah. So, and I think Angelo put the Nintendo seal of quantity. It was his statement to that, and it's just like some of the stuff on the eShop, and especially the bundles. The AAA clock and the AAA clock digital ultimate bundle edition, all that crap. Yeah, if there's a Switch 2, Nintendo need to clamp down on that shit again. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I've had a lot of fun with the Switch.
Oh man, Nintendo takes 30% of every transaction for those, man. They ain't stopping.
I was about to say, there's literally no incentive for them to stop.
Absolutely not.
But that stuff comes out, the brand new release, and they go 90% off because it's brand new. It's like, that's not how you make money. I mean, obviously you make money, but it's like, if your game's brand new, you don't want to be discounting it that much, because then people won't buy it when it goes off sale. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the point, though, is that like every 3 months, like when they're legally allowed to put it on sale again, they do, and people will just wait for that. But I think
I
like
mean,
part of the
Cap-
problem with that,
Capcom games especially cycle every 6 weeks. Those bloody Devil May Cry and Resident Evil all $15 again.
But those are good. That's
Yeah.
the difference.
I mean, I think like part of the problem with that, I think, is due to how the development and publisher system works. Is basically you do have to jump through a heck of a lot of hoops to get approved for Nintendo developer status to begin with. But then like after that, like you're free to, like once you've got the ability to publish onto the eShop, you can just do whatever you want. So there's a lot of people who have jumped through all of those hoops and like provided cause for Nintendo to give them a developer account, and then after that, you know, just
I
pump
will
out
say this: it
cheap
can't be
doubleware.
that challenging because in the Wii U era, when I was working at corporate Telstra, I was like, I've got an idea for a game, and I'm like, I wonder how hard it is. So I submitted a web form to Nintendo, and 2 weeks later, they called me to ask if I was actually considering doing this. Obviously, it's a bit different now with Switch and Wii U, but it's like, if they're that desperate, they're calling some random guy in Australia about, you know, do you actually want a developer account? It can't be that challenging to get one.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I probably looked at it and thought,
they
look at
did-
this idiot. Does he really want to do it? We better call him.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the sheer quantity of games that are coming out means that like curating them all is like a massive ask. And like Nintendo is a company that could do that, right? Like they have the money and the resources to do that. But like there kind of comes problems with that in that like every new person that gets introduced to a pre-release game becomes a security risk for that game, both for Nintendo and for the developer and for the publisher. So like a certain amount of automation is kind of needed, but then like having it all automation and zero human oversight is bad too. So yeah, it's,
and I think like I'm certainly not defending Valve or spruiking Valve here, because God know they have their issues with their store, but with the amount of shovelware that also comes out on Steam all the time, somehow they manage to keep their front store page like not a heaping pile of shit. And that's all I want from Nintendo. Like, you can release all that garbage on there in the background. That's totally fine. But I just don't want it constantly front and center. Like, that's the stuff that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to say, right? Because like a lot of the way that like people use the eShop, for some reason they'll scroll down to the new releases section, right? But like if you opened up the new releases section on Steam, like you would have a similar problem, right? Like it's filled with shit.
Yeah, for sure. But like Steam has like on their front page, they just have new and trending, and new and trending is like curated, right? And that's something that Nintendo needs, right? Something
that's the thing,
fills
is like,
that similar void, but isn't the exact thing.
Is the thing, like the Switch does have like a new and trending kind of page. Like it's called What's Hot, I think, on the eShop. And that does have like a curated selection. It has like Indie of the Week and like, you know, best-selling games right now and stuff. But like nobody uses it, and I don't know why. I think it's just because I don't know, like Nintendo.
Is it literally on the front page? It's not on the front page, right? It's a separate section.
When you load up
it's on
now,
the banner on the left.
It's on the banner on the left, yeah. So you'll go to like top selling games, I think is the first one, and then like after that it'll be new releases, and after that it's the What's Hot. But it should be the default page.
So
for sure.
the way Steam does it, it's
current offers and charts.
Literally on the front page.
Okay. So Luke, did you just say that Discover was the top one?
Yeah, so Discover's the top one, which is like your homepage.
Yeah,
that's a bit
so
curated. Then recent releases is just what's new. Current offers is what's on sale, and then charts is like, you know, the top selling games.
Right. So they have changed it so the home screen is the Discover. But like, I don't know. It's just like user behavior that like nobody uses it, and I don't know how Nintendo has done that, where they've like conditioned people into not looking through the Discover page.
Because moving to any other tab outside of that Discover one is clunky and slow.
I know, but that's what I'm saying, is that's what people are doing. They're
through
ignoring the Discover page and going to the other pages, like the new releases tab.
Well, I don't think there are like, apart from like those who really want to dig, I don't think there are a lot of people actually like really browsing the eShop. Like if you go to the eShop often, you know what you want, or you're just quickly checking out what's on sale.
I mean, it's kind of difficult for us to gauge that, right? Because like
yeah.
we're not the average user, and like the people that we interact with aren't really the average user. Like I don't know, I don't ever go to the like PlayStation store to browse things either, right?
I
And
think-
Oh, dude, I do all the time. Anytime there is like a hint of a sale, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go look at the first like 100 games that are on sale because there's usually like 500 of them.
I think
yeah, but
the,
like
the,
really.
the biggest roadblock
That's cool, man.
Nintendo
Let's
has right
let's
now.
argue.
No, I mean it's not an
Uh,
argument. It's just like I
okay.
don't use it like that, right? So like I can't. So like it's exactly the same with the Xbox. Like I don't tend to browse the stores. Like if I see something that people are talking about, then like yeah, I'll look it up. But like I'm not gonna like go, oh yeah, let's look through like 200 pages of sales or whatever, right? It's like if people tell me something is on sale or like something I've heard about recently is that's on my wish list, I'll see it on my wish list that it's on sale.
So it's like you and I are two different people. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, right? Is that like there will be some people who like scroll through all of the recent releases, but like then there'll be some people who scroll through the Discover section on the Nintendo Switch, and like both are valid approaches. But like we can't say like, oh, Nintendo needs to do a better job of curating it if like all we do is like scroll past the Discover page to look at new releases, right?
I mean, Nintendo need to anything that's like bundle edition and all that crap can fuck right off.
I do think you should be able to like filter out the bundles just from the new releases because I think that would go a long way in.
Well, they're not new releases. They're just bundling two things
Well,
together.
they are because they're new bundles. Yeah.
So what was the topic
think-
again? Like we've done to like what we want.
7 years of Switch.
Yeah,
I-
it's
I-
just vaguely 7 years of Switch. I mean, we were talking about like, I don't know, discoverability is obviously an issue on the Switch. So something better on the Switch 2 would be nice. But I have a feeling it's just going to be the same eShop regardless.
Yeah.
Mark, I think you were trying to make a point.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that I think the biggest issue with the eShop, like at the moment, and why they can't really do anything else, is it's just usability in general. Like the Switch just isn't really powerful enough to handle like a good shop interface. So hopefully that will change in the next console, and that'll power them to do better things.
Out of the three home console shops at the moment, I honestly think PlayStation's is the best because I'm sick and tired of Xbox scrolling through and getting, ads and like even now Xbox on their home screen. They're like, here's all these games that came to Game Pass. I'm like, when was the last time you saw me download a Game Pass title? It's like, I haven't done that, right? Or you get down there, it's like, oh, you've played this game. Here's 100 games that are similar to that. It's like, I don't want that on my home screen, right? So their shop is very much that sort of market where it's like, oh, you've had this before. Here's other games like that. They're very much focused on trying to sell you other things rather than what you're looking for.
I will say,
Nintendo don't have anything like that. I think PlayStation's is the best. And I'm not saying it is the best store because their store is clunky, is all buggery as well. But out of the three, PlayStation have sort of got a decent online store going.
I will say of the three, I think search is best on Switch, which is a wild thing to say. But if I search for like Final Fantasy on Switch or PlayStation or Xbox, on PlayStation or Xbox, it'll show me like, DLC for Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns before it'll show me any of the actual Final Fantasy games. Where on Switch, if I type in Final Fantasy, it'll show me the Final Fantasy games just right off the bat. And I don't know why the like DLC and like microtransactions are like so high up on the list for Xbox and PlayStation, but the search experience is not super great on those.
Yeah.
But in any case, there's a lot of improvement on the Switch that needs to happen for Switch 2. And I do worry deeply that it's not going to happen.
When given they've said, they've invested a lot of time into Nintendo account, I fully expect Switch 2 to be, like going from iPhone 14 to iPhone 15. New tech, but everything else is pretty much the same. I kind of expect that to be the same with Switch 2. That, it'll have some new guts, but the software and everything else behind it will be almost identical. I don't think they're going to do anything too drastic there, which
I
is a
suspect that will
shame.
probably be the case, but like just by virtue of having more powerful hardware and hopefully more RAM and faster storage, like hopefully that will help a lot with that kind of thing.
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see.
I will say though, for discoverability and sales and everything, Vookcast.net has everything covered because Daniel is the one that goes through that every week, and in the sales thing, when he sees all that bundle crap, he goes through and he cleans that out of the list. And when the develop, I don't even want to give them their name, but when they released all their mobile crap on Switch in the last week, he cut all that out of the list because it's like, no, you do not deserve to have your stuff highlighted because it is utter garbage and you're shoveling it for the sake of shoveling it. So he does that every week for both everything that goes on sale that week and everything that's new that week. And I think that's the best way to find out what's on the eShop, because you know somebody's actually curating this stuff. He's not going through and checking the quality of every game. Don't get me wrong on that one, but it's just something that he's doing. So.
And in terms of sort of the next console, I mean, we're all, kind of in agreement that either at the end of this year or sometime at the start of next year, there'll probably be another Switch-ish console. What do we want to see from that, and what would be the deal breaker that would mean you're not going to buy it? Because I think like the only real deal breaker for me personally is like backwards compatibility. If there's no backwards compatibility of any kind, then it's probably not worth buying. I mean, I'll buy it anyway because I have to for my job, but
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, like if it was just me personally, if there isn't backwards compatibility, like there's no point, right? Like I have hundreds and hundreds of games on Switch, so yeah. Michael, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to think like what Nintendo could do to like make me not buy the next console. But I also think that I'm just like such a Nintendo drone that they could just basically have something that's awful and I'll be like, okay, just purchase it.
Because they'll show it alongside like the next new like 3D Mario game and you'll be like,
yeah,
alright, well, I guess I'm buying that.
Or Mario Kart 9 or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It would have to be something. I think even if it didn't have backwards compatibility for me, I think I'd still purchase it regardless. Because like, as much as I think that's something that they definitely should have, like, I'd still want to like play the new Nintendo games that are going to come out on Switch for the most part anyway. I think it would be a very dumb. It would be like a Wii U branding level error not to have backwards compatibility on Switch 2. But things that I want to see. Oh man. Obviously like more power is like obviously the hands down one, like easily. But I want to see not just more power, but like a more balanced like set of hardware that actually gave thought to if we have this CPU power and this RAM and this GPU, like is everything actually gonna work well together? Because I feel like that's one of the biggest roadblocks on Switch right now, is that some things are really powerful and some things are super garbage, and then some things in the middle, and then there's one thing that's always limiting something else, and then you can't actually get things to play well because something's roadblocking you all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think like obviously that comes from using an off-the-shelf chip that was
correct.
Not made for gaming, right? It's like that
100%.
was supposed to be a chip that you put in a phone, and it was supposed to do all the things that phones do. So
I'm pretty sure that's definitely what they're doing with Switch 2. Like I would assume so.
I just want Nintendo to not be cheap for a change. They did it with the game, and when I say this, I don't mean like the being cheap, but they always aim for the lowest end of the tech spectrum that they can get away with, because they're like, oh, we don't have to worry about competing on power, and it's like, yeah, okay. By the same logic, you don't need a car that does 100 kilometers an hour.
Like, let's be fair. Only since Wii, like everything up until that point was competing on power.
Yeah, they were trying, but ever since then, like, you know, when they release their consoles, they tend to release them, you know, and they don't lose money, and it's like, okay, that's fine, and I'm happy you're making money, but it's at the same time, it's like, I'd rather pay an extra $50 or you not make $50 per console you sell, make $45 per console you sell, and just add an extra 10% more power, right? Don't go the cheapest route possible just because you want to make more money on each box you sell. Right? Try and be a little more forward thinking in terms of, hey, we've got 40 years worth of gaming. We've got people that have been with us since day one that want more. Let's think about them rather than just what's the cheapest box we can sell to grandma and grandpa for their grandkids.
Like I want the Switch OLED of Switch 2 on day one. You know what I mean? Like I want all those like new things that they're like, oh man, we can really improve this by making this out of this, or make the hinge not a pile of shit. have an OLED display, like whatever it is, right? Like I think the Switch OLED is definitely like a way more refined version of the Switch, where they actually thought how things would work. And I hope we get something closer to that for Switch 2 on launch day, instead of like something that we're like, well, this is really poorly thought out. One thing that's got to be probably controversial. I don't know. I hope they get rid of Joy-Cons. I just hope if it's a handheld and it's it's dockable, whatever, just build them into the goddamn console.
On the one hand, like,
I felt the physical of the Joy-Con was literally only just to like really cement that this was a handheld console and a home console. I don't think like it was a necessary thing for like the overall console user experience. And they really just added that just to be like, look, you can take these out and now it's a home console and you can put it back in and take it with you. And it was literally just a marketing thing. I genuinely think that was the purpose of those.
I think using the Joy-Cons in the little whatever the fuck the thing's called, I literally have no idea what it's called.
Joy-Con grip.
Puck, the Joy-Con grip, that thing is just the worst possible like controller. It's awful, absolutely awful.
I'm happy for them to keep the Joy-Cons, but I want them to be, adult-sized Joy-Cons. I'm sick and tired of, we've made these for kids. It's like, yeah, but again, the people buying this aren't 10-year-olds. The people buying this aren't 15-year-olds. They're grown adults. So maybe think about that.
If they do have Joy-Cons, which they may do, I hope they really refine the rail system on the console. Because even now, even with the Switch OLED, I still think it's a little bit too loose and annoying and creaky when I'm in handheld mode. I want it to just be properly locked in there, like not an iota of like movement or anything.
Jump on what Luke was saying. As just a quick counter to that, it's easy for like dudes like us with larger hands to say, we want bigger controls and things like that, stuff to fit in our hands. But there's actually an interesting book on this. I can't remember what it's called actually. But there's a book that actually did a lot of research into the development of tech, and who they get to actually test these things. And like generally, it is men who test these. And they don't actually take into consideration like the form factor of like women's and children's hands. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Nintendo actually kind of did that with this, and that's why they're generally smaller, so that way they can fit in children's hands and like guys who are smaller in stature and women who have generally like smaller hands than dudes do. So I think we're actually in, like demographically probably in the minority in that regard.
The size of it is actually not my problem. I actually am a person that has small hands. So like the size of the controllers is not an issue. They're not actually comfortable. They're not ergonomic, right? They've just chosen an aesthetic design more than a design that actually is comfortable for people to use, which I think is dumb. I'd rather it be less aesthetic and more usable.
I mean, my issue isn't the fact that I think they're too small. Like I have no issue with them at all in using them, but I just think that we're at a point now where everyone else is building for everyone, and Nintendo seems to be, we've built this and you have this, and if you don't like this, you don't play on it. And that's sort of, they've kept that sort of mentality for quite a while. And we saw it with the Wii remote. Like that was one form factor, and they never really, they added Motion Plus, but they didn't change the shape or design. And we've sort of seen over the years, especially Xbox, the original, the Duke control, that behemoth of a thing. Every sort of generation, they've refined that controller more and more and more. And I think Nintendo just needs to consider that everyone else is not everyone's going to fit that style. I mean, Ollie's a prime example. He uses the Hori one, the split pad Pro Hori thing, because that's a little bigger. Again, if we're having an OLED Switch 2 and a regular Switch 2 or something at launch, maybe there needs to be a standard Joy-Con and a Joy-Con XL.
Yeah, I mean, like my biggest concern with not having Joy-Cons is one of accessibility.
Repairability?
Oh, repairability too. Yeah, I mean accessibility is a big one for me, because like I can't play like with regular Joy-Cons now. I have a degenerative tendon disease, which means that just playing with the Joy-Cons means that I get 20, maybe 30 minutes before I have so much pain that I can't play anymore. The split pad fits, which I use now, and the split pad pros before them, are I can get 4 or 5 hours. So having like being locked into one type of controller is bad. And I hate it on the PS5 as well, how you can only use the DualSense on PS5 games. I think it's a terrible accessibility decision that doesn't need to exist. But if they're locked into, like, if they just build the controls into the handheld, I think that's going to have some accessibility ramifications that aren't going to be super pleasant. And obviously repairability as well is a concern. But, you know, these kinds of issues have existed with handhelds in the past. So, you know, it's not as if it's going to be a new problem, but it's one that Nintendo has accidentally solved. That I think they probably should continue not accidentally solving it, I guess.
No, I understand what you mean. But, like, I think, just to clarify, my main complaint is the ergonomics of the controller in itself already,
sure.
right? So, like, I want it to be locked in, but that's more from, like, an ergonomics point of view. Just make the controller not shit.
But then, like, the other thing, right, is that, like, a lot of these things are, like, you know, they can only focus test so much, right? And, like, when they do focus test, they don't know if they're getting a biased sample. And then when you release it and 100 million people are suddenly playing with your console, like, then you realize, oh shit, we probably should have done something different. Like, I don't think...
Yeah.
Like, I think the Switch kickstand, for example, I think in their testing environments, they were like, this works perfectly fine, right? It's like the way that we're using it is how we envisage most people will use it, so we're never going to do that. And then, like, you know, 50 million people bought it in that first, like, 18 months, and then discovered, well, you know what? That's not how people are going to use it, huh?
I think that specific one is really interesting because, like, Nintendo has generally been quite obviously child focused, and, you know, they design a lot of things for children. Their hardware is usually very well designed and durable. And I'm like, did they hand this to a child that, like, immediately ripped off the kickstand because it's held on with, like, fucking clag glue? Like, it's just I'll never understand that.
Well, what's funny about the kickstand is that, like, one of the shots that they explicitly show in the very first marketing video is some dude on a plane with that on a train. And if anyone's ever flown on a plane before, those things rumble around and vibrate all over the place. And as soon as you put, like, that flimsy little kickstand up, that thing just falls over. You're like, well, the video lied to me.
So I got my Switch on launch day, and then 3 months later, I was on the way to E3, and I thought, oh, I can do what they did in that thing. After like 3 minutes, oof, fell straight down on its back. Just no support whatsoever.
So there's actually,
and I think like it's also the same for, like, the controller. Like, yeah, obviously I agree that there's limited testing that they can do, right? They can't, you know, obviously it's a pre-release product. They can't just have a billion people come in and check it out. But I also just refuse to believe that someone during the Switch testing didn't pick up the Switch and be like, actually, this is pretty uncomfortable. Like, I don't understand. I genuinely don't.
I think it's probably a case of, like, when they were doing testing, there were more people saying that it was comfortable than those saying that it wasn't comfortable. So they went with the people that were saying it was comfortable, right? I mean, there's obviously, like, a bit of, like, confirmation bias in testing something like that, where it's like, well, we've got this design, and most people are saying it's fine, so we're just going to assume that it is actually fine.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I can use the Switch, like, that controller, and be totally fine. Like, I don't, you know, it's not going to hurt me in any way, you know, unless I'm, you know, 11 hours or something into it. But it's just like, it just feels bad constantly, and that's what I don't enjoy.
I mean, if you're getting 11 hours out of a Switch in handheld, I want to know what model Switch you have, because my battery doesn't last that long.
Play it plugged in, man.
Obviously. I'm tethered all the time, baby.
But no, one of the, just back to the kickstand very briefly. Like, just a fun little story that I like to tell is, like, after I bought my Switch, one of my friends was, like, very curious about it. So she came over and, you know, had a look at it, and then I was like, oh yeah, look, you can take it out, and there's a kickstand, you can have it on your table. And she was like, oh, and you can just, like, put it back in the dock and keep playing. And I was like, yeah, sure. She put the console, like, back in the dock without, like, putting the kickstand back in, and it, like, flung off and cut her eye. So that was, like, 2 days after, like, the Switch launched. I had to, like, go with my friend to hospital because her eye was bleeding. So because it just flung off and, like, hit her right in the eye. So yeah, there's there's certainly some like that wouldn't happen on the OLED Switch because like the kickstand won't
I mean, if
fly
you
off
manage to
like
snap
that.
that one off, I'd be more worried about you losing your head.
Yeah.
That thing's big.
I'll say.
In terms
Sorry.
of, well, go on. No, you go. Go.
I'll also say one thing that I definitely don't want from Switch 2, which I think a lot of people talk about, is this split graphics power design, where there's like an extra GPU or whatever inside the dock that gives it more power. I think that's just gonna be a developmental nightmare and just not the place to go. So I really hope that's not something they do, and I don't think it is. I think that's not a very Nintendo thing to do.
Go straight into 20 questions. So Luke, you have the question or the answer, I guess, this week. We're the ones with the questions. Have you picked an easy one at least? Okay.
Picked a game.
The silence and stuff. All right. Well, I guess we'll go with our usual first question. Did this game come out on or after the 1st of January 2000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a game that
Is
was
this
released on the 1st of January 2000. How many of them are there?
I mean, same question for 2010, I guess.
No.
Okay, so it's between 2000 and 2010.
Can I just say I'm very happy that you started with 2000 and not 2010, because I figured 2000 sort of in the middle of the two, halves. It's a good midpoint.
Was this game released on a handheld console?
Yes.
So GBC, GBA, DS.
Was this game released on the Nintendo DS?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. It's not like they
Was this game released after the DSi was released?
That is
Luke furiously googling when was DSi released.
pretty much.
It was like 2009
I just-
sometime.
No, it was released before the DSi was released.
We've got a time frame, and we know that it's not a digital only release.
That's a good point, actually.
Oh, I see what you did there. 2 answers with 1 question. You sneaky little.
It was very good. Did this game make use of DS download play?
Luke furiously googling.
No, it did not.
That is a feature that has been ripped from this world, and I miss it very, very dearly.
Yeah,
These
it was
games
good.
are too big
I
now.
agree.
Mario Kart DS and Tetris DS were brilliant for that. Oh, and even Mario 64 with those mini games.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, you were Mario Kart. You were limited to what racer you could have, but it was still cool that you could
Yeah,
just do
doesn't
it.
matter.
I-
Yeah,
I will
Shy
tell you
Guy.
this: a friend of mine, he was on a road trip driving up to New South Wales. It was him in one car with a bunch of mates and another car with a bunch of mates, and they were playing Mario Kart through download play across 2 cars driving down the highway.
They're doing literal Mario Kart to maintain
amazing.
speed, and then
Yeah.
playing Mario Kart within Mario Kart.
It's like the only time I've ever thought download play was like the best thing ever.
That's got to be dangerous.
Oh, probably.
Um,
I don't think the people driving the cars were playing, but
Was this game published by Nintendo?
no.
Was this game developed in Japan?
No.
Ooh, okay.
Did this game utilize multiplayer?
Yes.
Was this game developed in Europe?
I believe so. Just let me double check. I literally checked before, and now I've forgotten. Yes. And that's 10.
Okay. Is this game part of a series?
Yes.
How many questions have we asked?
You've asked 11 questions.
Okay.
So you've got 8 questions and a guess to go.
Is this a licensed game?
No.
I feel like we got nowhere.
I mean, you know, it's a DS game.
It was developed in Europe and not
Between
published by
2004
Nintendo.
and 2008. Yeah.
Was the primary gameplay input for this game the touchscreen?
Unsure.
So that would eliminate things like, you know, Phoenix Wright's graphic novel type games, puzzlers, something like Scribblenauts.
Does that count as a question that's been asked? If it's
No, I'm
unsure?
not taking that off.
Okay, cool.
Because I can't give you an answer, so...
At least I would assume it would be something like that because those are pretty obvious.
Yeah, no, agreed. Maybe go with the genre. Is this game an RPG?
It's considered an RPG, but not in the sense you're probably thinking of.
Okay.
I want to clarify that one because it is a little
That is-
tricky.
Severely unhelpful.
If we talk, so did we ask if it was made in Japan? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's made in Europe.
It's made in Europe. Okay, so it's not a Square game. It's not a JRPG. European, maybe RPG.
RPG-ish.
Something like Drawn to Life? Was that like a sort of RPG?
I think that would be very clear if like the main input was touch. So
Well, I can't
like,
remember. I
if-
remember playing the beginning of that game where you design your character, but I can't remember if playing the game you used the touchscreen a whole lot. That's the only thing. I remember only playing like the first hour and I designed my character, did like a very small amount of it and then bounced.
I mean, I thought that was more of like a sort of platform, like
Constantly drawing. Yeah.
Too, so.
I can't remember. The question that I asked, did it have multiplayer?
It has
yeah.
multiplayer, yes.
Okay. So an RPG-ish game with multiplayer on the DS prior to the DSi. So that's a pretty narrow time frame. That's like 2000, oh maybe not. It's like 2004 to 2000.
Yeah.
Developed in Europe, man. I can't even think of anything. I'm trying to think of studios that could have made it, but I can't even.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch of Ubisoft stuff. Was Infogrames still around at the time?
Sorry, it wasn't developed in Europe. It was developed in the US. I stand corrected on that one. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Cool beans. Yeah, developed in the US.
So that opens it up a lot more.
Out of a series.
Is this series a long-running series?
No.
No. Oh man.
Okay. Doesn't really narrow it down too much because it could have been a short-running series around that time.
Yeah, exactly. Like 2 games that came out on DS, like, and then just
Yeah.
never had anything else.
Could ask if it was in 3D or 2D.
Yeah.
Was this game primarily? Did it utilize 3D graphics? Primarily.
Primarily? I can't answer that one.
Okay. So maybe it's a 2.5D then.
So I'm not taking a question away for that one because I can't give you an answer.
Thing kind of isometric. Like that Sonic game? Sonic and the Something Brotherhood?
Oh, the Dark Brotherhood game?
Yeah. But surely Luke would have gotten that because that was a BioWare joint.
Surely that counts
Not
as a
a
long...
European.
Oh,
one.
wait, do we... I was about to say,
Oh,
surely that
yeah,
counts
you're
as
right,
a
you're
long-running series, but, like, are we counting the Dark Brotherhood, like, subset? Like, the
No, you're-
series?
No, you're right.
I will tell you 2 things. 1, that was played primarily exclusively with the touchscreen, and 2,
Okay.
I already used that one.
Oh, okay, I don't remember.
It's in our list already.
Oh, man.
I couldn't have said anything, just let you get going down that hole, but I'm being nice. So you got 5 questions and a guess.
And we have nothing.
Will any of us have ever heard of this game before? That
I
isn't
mean,
a question.
I won't take that. I won't take that as a question, but I'll say yes. You will have heard of this series at least.
All right.
Oh, man.
Adjacent to that question, then, was this game well received?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, game that wasn't that great.
I wish I didn't ask this freaking RPG question, because now I'm like, my brain is like locked in.
But he said, like, not in the sense that we would expect.
So it's
Oh,
not
it's
like
like
a Final
a-
Fantasy RPG type RPG. So just RPG elements are within the game, but that's
Can I say
it's not
it's good.
known as an RPG.
I don't know who made it, but the Puzzle Quest games, but I'm pretty sure they were well received from memory. I don't think they were poorly received.
Yeah. They were made out of Melbourne, right?
I don't
Pretty
remember
sure.
who made them. I've got no idea.
Pretty sure 2K bought the developer for that one.
Oh, those are straight up puzzlers, though. I would argue.
Yeah, but they had RPG elements, right? This is exactly what I was trying to think of. Like,
I mean, I guess. I don't remember if your character levels up so much as just like whatever you're doing within
It's
that
happening.
puzzle, like
Yeah.
certain combos and stuff level up.
what else can we ask to narrow this down?
You could try publisher.
True.
There are so many publishers though.
Was it?
You could try and narrow down about the fact that it's a series. You could ask about something related to that.
Was it published by EA?
Yes, it was.
Oh, what?
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
I was gonna
What?
ask Ubisoft, so it's good that you asked EA.
Okay. Oh man, I've got that's so much worse.
Also, I apologize to the viewers who are watching my face and watching my camera constantly zoom in and out on me.
This is what I was talking about prior to stream. It's so annoying.
It's like slowly breathing. It's I can't deal with it. I do apologize. All right, an EA
what?
game. Could not tell you an EA DS game that was not a sports title.
And like
There are
an
a few.
RPG
There's,
like that's part of a series? Like what?
Yeah. Was there like a spin-off I don't think there was anything from like Dead Space on the DS. That was Wii. Or something akin to that.
I mean, I know there's a Dead Space remake somebody made as a fan thing, but nothing official.
Alright,
Plants
I'm gonna ask a
vs.
question. Was that
Because that is
Oh,
part of a series. I guess it's sort of long running.
I'm wondering
What was
about
that?
like
was that EA around that time?
think so. I'm pretty sure they got bought like PopCap got bought by EA like really like mid 2000s probably.
Okay.
I think. Anyway, so you were gonna ask a question. What was it?
Oh, I was just thinking of asking. Oh, I can't even remember what I was gonna ask now. Actually.
Oh wait, even a Sims
Oh.
game? Does that count?
Oh yeah.
well, I was thinking of
I was
like
gonna-
My Sims because the My Sims Kingdom was like really it was decent on Wii, but it was kind of shit on DS.
Yeah.
And the
And
My
I feel
Sims
like
series had like a few games, but
But again,
it's
are
not
we
really
like
that anymore.
because that's also like long running, right? Are we just counting like the My Sims subset as like what we're talking about?
well, it was a game that wasn't well received. I think that fits. Whereas Plants vs
That's
Zombies
true.
was
I think
pretty good
PVZ
across
is
the board.
probably. What was the DS version well received? I've got no idea.
Surely they couldn't have screwed that one up.
Who knows?
Okay, I mean like, should we just ask if it's related to The Sims? Because like that would, if it
Sure.
is,
Yeah, go for
then is this game related to The Sims?
Oh, God.
No.
All right.
Okay, well, I got nothing then.
Why do you think about that?
Oh, what about
psychoanalyzing Luke?
there was a Spore game on DS, right?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way that was received well,
But
right?
what's that? Oh, I guess it is part of a series. I think there was like some weird spin-offs, right, for Spore.
Yeah. But would you call that an RPG? Or I mean, I guess it has RPG elements.
And
that
it
you're
wasn't
upgrading things.
long running either. That was definitely like a flash in the pan.
Yeah. And it sucked.
Yes, and it definitely was not well received.
I don't know what
Okay.
that was called though.
Probably. Neither do I.
Like
This is
Spore.
probably as close as we're getting. Well, not getting, as close as we got.
I think that's a good one to ask about.
Ask,
Or you could just ask
Is this-
if it's a Mac game.
was this Spore game created by Maxis? Got no idea. I'd rather just ask if it's related to Spore.
That's fine, yeah, do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Is this game related to Spore?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we sort of fucked ourselves because I have no idea what this game is called.
Just Spore
You
on
have
the
one
DS.
question and a guess.
Oh my god.
He has to accept if it's just Spore on the DS. We would know what
Spore.
the game.
DS. I have no clue. Like, if my life depended on it, I could not give you an answer to this question.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
you
tell you
could
the
hold a
specific
gun to
name.
my head and I would be dead because there's no chance that I'm ever going to guess it. I mean, maybe it's just called Spore.
Maybe
They
they
just
combined
called
it- The only
DS
reason
with
why I-
Spore and it was called Spords.
the only reason why I don't think it's called Spore is because it's part of a series, and surely if it was just Spore, it wouldn't be part of a series, right? Because that's
I
just the
think
game.
I think in my head it was basically Spore, but like super. What's the word?
Crap.
Like, head back, cut down.
Yeah, pared back. Like, yeah, it was just. I think like a lot of it was even 2D rather than 3D necessarily.
Well, that answers that question from before.
Yeah,
Doesn't get us any closer to the name of it, which is.
I'm
what we're
sure
sort of
Luke
going
will
up
be
against.
forgiving if we don't get the specific name of it. We have the game.
All right, can I use our final question for something?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Does this game have DS in the title?
No.
Okay, I've got no fucking idea.
That's such a good question.
Yeah, no clue. It's Spore something. I've got no idea.
Yeah,
Crap
I mean,
Spore.
we may as well
Or just it could just be Spore as well, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Like,
No, I don't think it is.
it's definitely part of that era of like games where like the mobile version it wasn't ever just like the game. It was like, you know,
Multiplat.
SimCity crap edition or whatever. I don't know.
I will give it to you. I won't get you to say, is this Spore subset title, whatever.
Okay.
Released in 2008, and by the way,
Okay.
Plants vs Zombies on DS was 2011. But
Oh,
released in
wow,
2008,
okay.
developed by Kryptonite Games and Maxis under the direction of Will Wright. It's a sub-series of the Sims formula he pioneered, which is like, when you asked if it was related to the Sims, it's like, no, but also sort of. This is Spore Creatures.
Okay, yeah, we're
The
never
reason,
guessing.
the reason why I couldn't answer the graphic style is because the world is entirely 3D, but every critter, including the one you make, is
That's
2D,
it. That's
which is like
it, I
very
remember.
much a drawn to life style. It is
Yep.
primarily known as a life simulation, but it has RPG elements.
Cool.
And the creatures
Okay.
looked absolutely terrible because they were just like flat sprites, basically.
That's
And
wild.
the other thing with the
Sorry.
name is the game also got, the name was reused on an iPhone game like 8 months later, but it was nothing like this game and it was entirely different, but it had the same name. And there
I
was
am
4 games in the series
amazed.
in the end. 2 for phone, 1 for DS, and 1 for PC. And the best thing about the PC version is when they brought Robin Williams in to play the game, and he just spent an hour making the most bizarre looking creatures he could, being Robin Williams the whole time.
This is a creature that can kiss its own ass.
That's it.
I'm amazed that we got that. Like, quite frankly, that started off so poorly.
Yeah, we're like 10 questions in and we had 0 information. Goodness me.
That was good. That was a good one. That's
That
like,
was a good one.
yeah, like very like offbeat.
Yeah,
Somebody
I
made
like
the
that
comment last episode that, you know, we're getting to the games, we pretty much know them all. I'm like, ha ha ha. Let me see if I can stump you.
Well, see,
So,
my mum
I mean,
had that
and
one. So
technically you did
That's
stump
one
us.
bit of questions.
Would never, like I said, never guessed the actual title.
Look, for anything like that, it's the same thing with like if I picked Madden 05 and you said Madden, I wouldn't have been like an ass me like, well, no, you didn't give me the right year, so it doesn't. Well, I'm not going to be that sort of pedantic about it. Spore for DS is the same thing as saying Spore Creatures in my mind.
Alrighty, well that about wraps up this week's Vookcast, so be sure to visit the site www.vooks.net for all your Nintendo news, reviews, and everything in between. To keep up to date, follow the site on Twitter at vooks.net, which is all spelled out, or jump on over to our Discord at bit.ly/VooksDiscord. You can find all of our social information and links for all of the stories covered in this episode in the episode notes on whatever platform you're listening to. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next fortnight.